Hi guys, my name is Mike, and in this video I want to talk about the latest patch changes and the huge nerf that the attack choppers received in the latest patch. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, basically DICE removed the flares from the gunner position, so there's no more an ECM flare 1-2 combo. They've given a huge buff to the Eaglers and Stingers. Basically they've increased the damage, they increased the range to about 400 meters, and they reduced the time it takes to lock onto enemy aircraft. So they've made the Eaglers and Stingers a lot more effective. You see a lot more people running around with them rather than with an RPG. And the last change is that they made below radar work only against enemy aircraft. So if you're getting locked on by an Eagler, it doesn't matter how how high or how low you fly, you can still get locked onto. So those were the changes, and my opinion is, and my feeling is, after having played quite extensively after the patch, that the only reason that they implemented those changes was Carg Island Rush. This was the only map where the attack chopper was overpowered. This was the only map where I think people were complaining about, getting destroyed by a good pilot combo, and the reason I think that is because basically any other map in the game I think is extremely balanced. I mean, if you take Wake Island Rush, there's a AA gun that counters the attack chopper, and on Conquest, there's so many vehicles around. I mean, there's jets, there's another attack chopper, there's the gunship on Armored Kill, there's tanks on the ground with guided shells, soft lam, javelins. There's so many things going on Conquest that I thought, there was no reason to nerf it on that game mode. But I guess making those changes, they applied them across the board, and basically Conquest players got screwed over this one. So Carg Island Rush is, in my opinion, the reason why they made those changes. And the ironic thing is that a good pilot, a half decent pilot, will find a way around those changes on Carg Island, and actually it's the only map where they can actually do so, because there's so few threats. There's no AA gun, there's only one tank that if you take it out at the beginning, it's a lot easier. If you attack the base real quick and don't let them set up the soft lambs and stuff like that, you can make it a lot easier for yourself. So good pilots will find a way around those changes on Carg Island, so it makes those changes a bit of a waste of a time if they just did it for this map and this map only. There's so many hills on Carg Island on the first set of MCOMs that you can run around and hide, deploy ECM, hide, kill a few people, then recharge your ECM and come back for another kill. And the other thing they did is they forced pilots to basically spawn kill in order to not get shot down. I mean, the only way you can stay up in the air for a long period of time on any map right now is if you sit over their spawn and kill them, before they deploy their Eaglers, their soft lam and stuff like that. So I think that the change had an adverse effect. It didn't do anything for Carg Island, and it screwed the game over for the rest of the maps, and especially on Conquest. Now, if we look at the changes themselves, I mean, take for instance the ECM and flare combo that was supposed to be so overpowered. Half of the times it wouldn't even work, because of lag. You'd ECM a lock on, and your gunner would flare the incoming rocket, and you'd still be hit. So it wasn't that overpowered to begin with. As for the argument that every other vehicle in the game has one set of flares, so why should the attack chopper have two? I mean, the Venom and the Little Bird, they have one set of flares, but they have people repairing them, so there's no comparison there. And the jets, they have the speed advantage. If they get locked onto, they can just speed out of the danger zone, so again, no comparison there. But to tell you the truth, that wasn't the change that annoyed me. I mean, as a matter of fact, I had no problem with that change, because I always flew the attack chopper as if I had no set of second flares, because most of the times randoms didn't carry flares anyway. They used thermal or something like that. So I'm used to flying the attack chopper with one set of ECM or flares, so no problem there. And I also had no problem with buffing the Eaglers. I mean, they were pretty useless before the patch. Nobody used them. I've never been killed by anyone with a single star on their eagles or stingers. So giving them some extra damage and reducing the lock-on time were good ideas, but I think they went a bit overboard with the range. I mean, 400 meters is the length of a map, and you know, the eagle should be a personal defense against an aircraft. I mean, covering the entire map, one person covering the entire map, I think that's ridiculous. And I mean, I can't stand getting killed by a low level 15, 16 with 0 kills on his eaglet just because he can click and shoot. I mean, that was a bit overboard. And the only change that really annoyed me was removing the below radar for eagles and stingers. I mean, you should have some sort of defense against these guns. Being locked onto all over the map by an eagle and not being able to avoid the lock-on, that's a bit, you know, that's ridiculous. I mean, Gulf of Oman, people can just climb on the buildings and the cranes and stuff like that, and there's so many places they can hide, and they can overlook the entire map. You know, you can't even get off your spawn if you're not on the aircraft on the other side of the map. Nosha canals, same thing. You know, the minute you spawn in the chopper, you get locked onto by guys on the beach. So, you know, it's a bit overboard what they've done with the range and the below radar. You should be able to go below radar and avoid lock-on, because it's so balanced. If you think that you have so many threats, you have tank shells, you have RPGs. You know, if you're good enough to fly below radar and avoid all the trees and buildings and stuff like that, you should be rewarded for it and not punished for it. So what could have DICE done differently? In my opinion, the only thing they needed to do was adding a AA gun on Karg Island. That would have solved a lot of problems, and that would have stopped a lot of people from going on the forums and crying about getting destroyed on Karg Island. The other thing they could have done, they could have reduced the damage, they could have nerfed the damage that the gunner weapon does on infantry. I mean, if you give infantry a fighting chance, then they can get out and pull out their eagles and stuff like that and try to shoot down the chopper. Those were the two easiest changes that they could have done before going forward and making all those huge patch changes. So what should DICE do now to improve things? In my opinion, they should first of all reduce the range of an eagle and a stinger. In my opinion, these weapons, the way they should work is they should cover a limited area, and they should be able to protect that area real well. So a very fast lock-on and a reduced range, both in radius and in altitude. So an attack chopper flying real high in the air and fighting another attack chopper, that's no business for an eagle to shoot down. I mean, it poses no threat for the infantry people on the ground. It's fighting another chopper. It shouldn't be able to be shot down. So I'm thinking 200 meters on radius, and about 300 meters, 300 feet. I'm sorry, for height. If you're flying over 200 feet, you shouldn't be able to get locked on by an eagle or a stinger. It should be protecting the ground troops and the tanks around them and stuff like that. So that's the first change that I would like to see implemented, and the second change would be below radar, working for every lock-on. I mean, if you're good enough to be flying low to the ground and avoiding all those threats that I've talked about before, you should be rewarded about it. If they make these two changes, I see no reason why they should go back and add flares to the gunner. I think that was the only good change they made with the patch. So that's it for me, guys, for now. I hope I hope to hear from you what your opinion is about, you know, the patch notes and what changes you'd like to see implemented about the attack choppers. So take care for now. Bye.